Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining. Just going to wait a few more seconds so everybody can get logged into the session, and we'll get going. Okay, here we go. Hello, and thanks again for joining us. I'm Michael Bokus, the CEO of Geoscape Solar. We've got a great discussion coming up on how businesses can save the planet while turning a profit. Before we get started, we have a few housekeeping items. We're going to leave some time at the end for questions. If you want to ask a question, just click on the Q&A box at the button at the Zoom control bar, enter your question, and we'll get to as many as we can today. It's best if you don't use the anonymous question asking. That way we can get you an answer by email if we run out of time in the program. But don't worry, only the panelists will be able to see your name, so it's effectively anonymous anyway. If you want to direct your question to a specific panelist, please include that in the Q&A box. And finally, today's discussion is being recorded, and you'll get a link to the recording by email within the next day or so. A little bit about me. I started Geoscape Solar 13 years ago after a 20-year career in investment banking. As far back as 2008, the writing was on the wall. The future needed to be green. So I stopped doing something my kids couldn't even understand and started to build a business they could be proud of. And I'm going to do a little technology and share a little presentation. Okay. Now it's 2022, and Earth Day is tomorrow. The need for green is even more clear today than it was back then. Gen Z's biggest concern, other than having to work for a living, is that our planet will die. Looking at current events, we are more aware than ever about the importance of energy independence. Every time we use imported fossil fuels, we're funding something that we're probably not too comfortable with. So most of us agree that being green is good, but is it possible to be green and to make green at the same time without starting your own solar company? So there's a myth. Solar energy is not affordable. Here's the buster. It's the opposite. Solar creates increased profitability and cash flow. The panelists we have today will provide real-world examples of this. Before they get started, though, I would like to highlight some basic solar vocabulary you'll hear in today's discussion. We can install solar in a variety of venues. We can put it on top of roofs, it can go in lawn areas, and it can go into parking lots in the form of carports. This graphic shows that sunlight hits solar panels, produces electricity, gets inverted by mechanical devices into electricity that we can use in the buildings. But some of the lingo that's involved in the economics of solar is a word called net metering. That's where the electricity your solar produces can spin your meter backwards if you're producing more than you need, and you get credit with your utility for that electricity, which you can then use when the weather's not so good at night, when the solar's not working and you need to get that electricity back from the utility. We talk about the avoidable rate on your electric bill. That's the price you're paying per kilowatt hour for your electricity that solar is able to help you offset. We also talk about kilowatts and megawatts in solar. That's a measurement of the capacity of a solar panel to produce electricity. So you'll hear system sizes, 100 kW, a megawatt, 300 kW. That's just a measurement of how big the solar system is. A kilowatt hour is the actual usage of electricity or the generation of the solar unit of electricity that goes back and forth to power your buildings and your equipment and to be credited by your utility. On the incentive side, you'll hear ITC or the investment tax credit. That's the federal incentive that's used to help fund and sponsor solar on a national level. Different states have different incentive programs on their own. In New Jersey, it's in a program called the SREC, which stands for Solar Renewable Energy Credit. And these incentives add to the profitability and the cash flow of going solar. And finally, for our basic vocabulary is what we call a PPA, stands for a power purchase agreement. And that is a investment and funding mechanism whereby a third party investor actually buys the solar and installs it and then charges you for the electricity it produces. So with that, I am so pleased to have with us on the panel three great Geoscape Solar customers who are going to share their stories. We have Will Morey, President and CEO of Morey's Piers, Rob Gross, CFO and COO of Grounds for Sculpture, and Stephen Kindle, Vice President of Kindle Auto Plaza. Morey's Piers, started in 1969 and located in Wildwood, New Jersey, is a family-owned business and is recognized as a premier regional entertainment destination. Morey's Piers encompass commercial recreational attractions as well as hotels, realty, management, and food and beverage service. In addition to being active in the entertainment industry through the International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions, Will Morey serves in the Cape May County Board of Chosen Freeholders and oversees the Department of Planning, Economic Development, Engineering, and Public Infrastructure. He is the liaison to the county's open space farmland preservation and boards. In 2018, Will was reelected to the New Jersey State Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. Among Will's multiple charitable endeavors and community service are the Board of Education for Wildwood and Wildwood Crest and the Boardwalk Special Improvement District. He is a founding board member and trustee of Cape Volunteers in Medicine. Currently, Will is the chair of the Cape May Coast Guard Community Foundation, and every other Sunday he gets an hour of sleep. Grounds for Sculpture is a nonprofit sculpture museum and was the first LEED version 4.1 certified public assembly project. Rob Gross has been with GFS for 26 years. Wow. Rob directs and oversees all financial management functions for GFS and oversees HR and IT resources as well as risk management. Additionally, Rob oversees the operational departments of guest services, museum shop, and event rentals. He has 35 years of accounting, auditing, and financial management experience in public accounting, private industry, and nonprofit organizations. And he sleeps on the Sundays that Will's not. and our third tireless panelist, Steve Kindle, Kindle Auto Plaza, established in 1957, is an automotive leader and dealership in Cape May Courthouse, New Jersey. Stephen Kindle is the third generation of the family-owned and operated business. Since 2014, Stephen has served as its vice president. Stephen brings 15 years of expertise in consumer experience, including creating a high-performance culture focused on teamwork and growth. Stephen served as president of the board of Cape Counseling Services from 2011 until 2019, when it merged with Ascenda. In 2022, Stephen was elected chairman of the board of directors. Welcome all, and let's get started. First question for my panelists. Tell us your company's solar story. When did you start looking at solar and why? If we could start with Will.
Sure. Well, so we started looking at solar about 4 years ago, I guess. And, we were as you can imagine, we're a pretty heavy energy user with important energy consumers like roller coasters and things like it, water slides and things like that. So we were looking at opportunities to offset some of those costs. But I have to say there's certainly been an interest generally in sustainability on the company and how we could have reduce our carbon footprint, in a number of ways. But we became intrigued with solar, not only in terms of being able to advance the sustainability, but as my colleague and CFO has said, he really likes green when it means green to the bottom line. And we started becoming a better student of that, and became really interested in pursuing solar in a number of areas. And as you might have mentioned, now we have solar at our hotels. We have another installation going on presently at one of the hotels, and have a fairly significant array going on with a carport that we think adds value, adds customer value in terms of shade and protection and things like that. And so it serves the business well, we think, but it also generates a substantial amount of power for Morey's Piers. So we'll be approximately, one of the amusement piers will be about 60% powered by the sun as it were. Our maintenance facilities, tram car operations that we support are all 100% solar powered now. So when you hear watch the tram car, that is 100% solar powered now, which I think is pretty neat for folks to be able to see.
Fantastic. Thank you. Rob?
Yeah, we started looking into solar about 4 years ago. Prior to that, we had begun a project of getting LEED certification, and that's the LEED, Leadership in Environmental and Energy Design designation. That's presented by the U.S. Green Building Council, and it's a pretty high level achievement, and it involves like solar is a big part of it, saving energy and so forth, but there's a lot of other cost saving measures that we put into place that were also very positive impact on the environment, recycling, reducing paper costs. We went through we go through a lot of paper in the past. We have an event guide that was distributed to up to like 100,000 people a year, about 30 pages, and we eliminated that through electronic, using technology to get the word out of all of our programming. The other thing is also getting more electronic signage in the grounds. We have a 42-acre sculpture park, so we have a lot of impact on what we present to the public. We also are seeing, prior to COVID, about over 250,000 visitors a year. And as a sculpture park and wanting to be a leader in the art world, we also have a responsibility to set an example, and going solar was like really the icing on the cake to getting the LEED certification that Michael mentioned about our organization. So it's not only a financial savings, it's also it's helpful for the message that we're trying to present to the public.
Great, thank you. Stephen?
Thank you, Mike. We've been looking at solar for, it's got to be about 10 years. We just kept doing an analysis to see when it would make sense for us. Solar, first and foremost, needed to have a financial impact with the dealership before the social impact. We definitely wanted to help with the social end of it, but financially it had to make sense first. So over the years, we kept looking at it. Ford Motor Company was one of the leaders in hybrid technology, and I don't think anyone remembers it, but the Ford Focus, there was an electric Focus, it's got to be like 7 years ago, before Tesla became really big. So we've been looking at solar because we thought it would be terrific once it made financial sense to be able to power our vehicles, to provide shade. As you can see in the picture behind me, we did the carport style. So it shades all of our customer cars in the summer. In the winter, it keeps the snow off of it. Looking at the EV future and where we're going, and I don't want to jump ahead, but it makes a lot of sense for our industry to go solar and for us to be a leader in it and not follow.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, second question. Did Governor Murphy's master energy plan have any influence on your decision to go solar? We'll start with Rob this time.
That wasn't part of it. If it does have some features of why we did it, I mean, it wasn't designed that way.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Stephen?
Ours was more within the automotive world, so I wasn't really looking at the Governor Murphy's plan for it. We're grateful for anything you can do to help us, but other than that, wasn't part of it.
Okay, thanks. Will?
Well, I'd like to say yes for the right reasons, but I'm maybe saying yes for the wrong reasons, which is, our sense is that the cost of electricity in New Jersey is just going to keep climbing. So, that the master plan really didn't have an effect in terms of having us take a part of it, because we wanted to become a part of what we thought as an initiative that would be helpful. But in some respects, I think we looked at both our sustainability objectives. We looked at what we thought were the business, as you mentioned, the bottom line supports, so to speak, and also I think as a defensive posture, so to speak, for the future, because I do think things like wind turbine, I mean, we understand that costs are going up with that. That's not going to make it less expensive. It's going to be more expensive. So, so I'd say that's unfortunately not how the governor would have intended us probably to factor it in, but that's how we factored it in. So.
Mike, we're not able to hear you.
So I could crack a lousy joke and say it's not a solar microphone, is it? Or something? It's cloudy out there today. I can't hear him either, but sorry, Mike.
Okay, is that better?
There he is.
Okay,
Sounds
yes, the wonders of technology.
Right.
Okay, sorry about that. How did the solar financing you went with impact your return on investment? And we'll start with Stephen.
For us, the way we financed it, we weren't looking at it as far as ROI goes. We just set it up so that we structured our payments for financing to match our electric bill. So the way we're set up, we should basically, in our view, have free electric after 5 years and not have to worry about the cost of increasing electric.
Great, that is the aim of the solar program. Will?
Sure. Well, we financed it internally. However, we thought it was really interesting. We made a property acquisition where the carports are going. So when we took a look at that, the cost of that acquisition, which we financed over a 20-year period or so, and we looked at the solar and the solar payback periods, we were actually able to really adjust the cash flow very favorably towards the acquisition of the property itself, because the solar payback was maybe in the 5-year range. I mean, typically it's been between 4 and 7 years, I would say. So we were able to finance the entire investment over the life of the property, which made it very attractive for us. So it was interesting because as we looked at it, we really hadn't envisioned on the front end that solar from a revenue source would be an important or a very helpful part of the overall acquisition and ROI of the project. But that's how it turned out to be.
Yeah. Terrific. Rob?
I would say that as our deal is a little more complicated, I imagine, than a for-profit business, because we're a nonprofit and couldn't take advantage of some of the tax advantages that are available. But the way that we worked with your firm as far as the SRECs and also the energy savings is with financing, our payback is also about between 5 and 6 years, where all of the energy savings will come to us after that. The cash flow will really improve greatly. But right now, the debt service is fully covered by the savings and the SREC program. So it's basically basically put for free up on our roof.
Excellent. Related question. To what extent and how have you measured the impact on your bottom line of the solar energy system, whether it's on the P&L, the cash flow? And we'll go back to you.
Sure. I think for the one transaction I defined, it was really helpful to the cash flow for the overall financing of the project. And that was the purchase of property, the building of a structure to support the solar. So in that case, it was initially really helpful from a deal structure standpoint. In terms of the other solar that we've added, it's just it's an offset now, but it'll be a direct contribution to the bottom line after we get through the initial investment outlay that was made, which we again expect to recover. We started about 4 years ago. The SRECs were a little more generous than they are today. So we expect that to be, in the 4 to 5 year range, probably. So which we thought was surprisingly attractive. I had the notion that the payback periods for solar were actually substantially greater. So we were really delighted to see that we could make an investment and have it pay back much more quickly. I'll tell you, for us also, demand charges are a really big factor. So we're really paying attention now to what level of benefit we might have from a demand charge standpoint. So if the electricity is $1, for the most part for us, it's $1.40, because we're getting, we have the adverse effect of the demand charge, which then stays with us as we go through the whole year.
Right.
So we're hopeful that might be a little bit of a sort of an extra benefit to us, but we haven't really been able to get our hands around that just yet.
Yeah, demand charge is one of the tricky things to forecast and get a handle.
Right.
Thank you. Stephen?
Yeah, I'll pretty much add to what Will said, instead of repeating a lot of the same. Sorry, I'm trying to mute my phone. One of the big areas that we also took advantage of is the advanced depreciation of solar panels and carports. Carports are within the solar panel advanced depreciation. So they allow you to depreciate up to 100% of them in 1 year. So that allowed us a massive payback or return. We're estimating our total return on our solar panels will be 2 years. We'll have everything paid off. So that depreciation factor was massive for us, for our bottom line.
Excellent. Okay. Rob, from the perspective of nonprofit financials?
Yeah, like I said, about after 6 years, the panels will have been fully paid off, and then we'll realize the SRECs in full from year 7 through 10 when they expire, and then the energy savings for the life of the roof, which is much longer than that. We, in the past, before we went with solar, we also supplemented our energy or electricity through a third-party supplier, we've locked in contract rates that are much lower than the utility. So you don't cover 100% with solar. You still need to purchase off the grid. So we're still managing that, and it does help solar, as what Will said, with the demand rate that has gone down just in the first 2 years so far.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Mike, I'm a little nervous with all this positive feedback that your prices might go up like in the next month or two. So we better.
Oh, well, if it does, it's not because of this. It's because of our global economic situation.
Well, our speaking rates will go up for helping them.
We'll triple them. That's right.
Number 5, has solar impacted how you conduct your business? And there are a variety of ways, whether that's making you more conscious about energy activities. We actually see a little bit more on the residential side that sometimes when people install solar and now they think their electricity is free, they start loading up on more appliances and running their air conditioning 24/7. So as you guys have gone this journey, any changes to how you conduct day-to-day operations? And we'll start with Stephen.
Absolutely. You kind of touched on it there. Once we added the solar panels, we were able to look at air conditioning our automotive shop and our collision center. That's something that you don't usually find in this part of the country, is an air conditioning shop. It's I'm sure everyone's going through difficulty hiring qualified employees, and that's absolutely helping us. This will be the first summer that we have air conditioning, and our employees are already thankful for it.
Great. Rob?
I don't think it's impacted greatly, but it has allowed us to add additional lighting out on the grounds, which is connected in some way to the solar, which allows for additional programming.
Terrific. Will?
Yeah. Hey, I really like, Stephen, your answer in terms of providing benefit to the staff, and you're right. It is an area that is under stress at this point. I'm hopeful that we may be able to one day follow that in kitchens and some of our workspaces as well. So we're gonna have to find a few more areas, and we do have one in mind to add additional solar But I would say, if anything, I think there's sort of a enthusiasm that comes with being able to offset in greater percentages, your off the grid energy demand. So there's a little bit of a, I don't want to say a camaraderie, but there's a culture, I think, that's positive, that it's associated with that. So I think it has, in some respects, had us maybe look harder at other areas. One of the areas that we want to focus on is as on-site storage becomes more and more perhaps viable, we want to take a look at that as a way to maybe offset demand. And as LED technology, years and years ago, we had LEDs that were supposed to last X long, but I think they lasted X divided by 4 or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think we're on our third set of lights on our Ferris wheel. But we're running that probably at somewhere in the maybe 15% of where we were when we were with incandescent. So I think it's interesting, the generation and the consumption reduction have some opportunity to come together a bit, to work together. So we're pretty excited about that, and hopefully, Stephen, will be able to do the same type of things that you've mentioned, and enhance the environment, enhance the workplace environment, as well.
Excellent. Thank you. So most of your installations are generally visible. How do your clients and customers react to your arrays? So I know, Rob, the main building, they can't be seen. Can the ancillary buildings be seen from the general walking around?
Yeah, definitely. Two other buildings have solar on it. It's done differently there, and it's very positive feedback on it. Plus, we mention it in different marketing materials and things like that. The other thing that's visible is the EV chargers that we put out in the last year, and that's being powered by solar from this building that you see behind me.
Excellent. Stephen?
Yeah, customers, they seem to love it. One of the things that your team had mentioned that I should have listened a little better to. So if anyone's looking at doing solar panels, especially carports, absolutely add car charging stations. We did not, because we wanted it more visible on the street. Ours can be seen, but it's a little bit off the street. I don't know if you can see in the picture, but we're kind of tucked in the middle of a parking lot. So we should have added charging stations. But other than that, it can be seen. People love it, and it protects customer cars. So it's really been a win all around.
Right. Will impact the amusement park customers?
Yeah, I think so. I think the tram car, powered by the sun, is a pretty cool thing. I think folks really are valuing that more and more. I do think we want to be careful in this sort of entertainment environment. The aesthetic is really important. So we want to make certain that when we do introduce solar, we can do it without adversely affecting the aesthetic. The photo behind me is actually a sort of a curved station, maybe not the greatest picture for a roller coaster that we have, but we still can maintain the shape of the station. We think that added an architectural element, and we didn't think that the solar panels would degrade that in any way. And when it's done properly, I think aesthetically, I think it sort of adds to the value equation for guests, because I think they appreciate the fact that we're trying to be environmentally conscious. So so the carport situation, I think, is very positive for the reasons, Stephen, that you mentioned. And we are, we got to follow you on this, Stephen. So we are focused on the EV stations. We're installing our first set of them at one of the hotels, but we've set the system up for the carport to be able to add EV as well. That just feels to me like that's just cascading to be more and more important. It's 3 times as important as it was 6 months ago, I think. So hopefully we'll get a little experience with that and that as well. So.
Yeah, clearly EV is a coming wave for a lot of folks that have presence in the public space. We've touched about some of the non-solar ways to reduce your carbon footprint. To what extent have you all had a formal process for carbon reduction outside of solar? And if you've done so, have you measured it? And are those efforts also positive for the bottom line? And
Sure.
we'll start where we left off with Will.
Sure. So it's not really funny here, I'm laughing, but we were starting our sustainability initiative in an organized way, right around, January of 2020. I have to say, to some extent, that the mask went on our faces and on the sustainability effort there for a little bit, because it became really a survival endeavor for so many of us. But that said, our location at the seashore, right on the beach, I think makes it even more important for us to, I think, focus on what would I call it, sort of an integration of the amusement park and all its mechanical stuff with the natural environment. And we have a ways to go to do that better. There's no question about that. But we're looking much more closely now at how we handle refuse, getting rid of single-use plastics, moving all, so much of our food service items are disposable. So going to, compostable containers and all those type of things. And I think that, those just make sense. After you start to really sort of peek under the covers on this, there are a lot of ways that we can, I think, sort of improve our footprint and address sort of, I'll call it our social responsibility. So I think our team is really interested in doing that and is more attuned to it. And we're really fortunate and thankful after having, I think, good, strong recovery year last year to get back to that initiative.
So that's excellent. And those are good carbon reduction. Are you noticing, are those costing you, or are those also contributing to the bottom line?
So I think there may be a push in many ways, but it's harder to tell now, right? I mean, with this inflationary environment that we're in,
right.
It's like, well, what did that used to cost? Well, this one, so you could still compare, but for us, there are certain products that just aren't really suitable anymore in the state of New Jersey or for us. So we're really focused on, the sourcing of those and all. But for the most part, I would say that whatever the investment is, in cases where it might be a bit greater, it's well worth the investment. I mean, there's guest experience. There's so many ways that it sort of comes to bear. So, we're finding it to be something that we want to invest more in and be more attuned to.
Okay, great. Rob, GFS, clearly the LEED certification means that you do have an integrated program.
Right.
Have you been able to measure the bottom line effect of the other initiatives?
Well, I mean, prior to the LEED certification, we were taking measures to for cost savings, because we are a public supported nonprofit. So we're always looking for cost saving methods. One of them is an elaborate rainwater management system that collects rain off the building and channels it into ponds. Ponds on the property. We have a lot of water features and 42 acres, even though, we're an arts organization, a lot of it's horticulture and a lot of, diverse horticulture, trees and plantings throughout. So use of, utilities is a big cost. So in addition to that, we also have a map that we used to hand out to all the visitors that came, or groups, probably about 100,000 a year, maybe more. And we converted, we went to a fully digital map that's available for free on people's phones, and they can walk around. And so those kind of things we're constantly improving with and also definitely a big effect on the environment.
Right, and of course saves paper and printing and.
Exactly, the cost of that is unbelievable.
Yeah, right. It's not just.
We also have a couple of cafes and restaurants. We have an outside food service provider, and they're also going to biodegradable, cafe Ecoware, and also being very conscious of that. And they do that in their operations that they manage in other facilities too. So they've been very cooperative with that.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, our guests and customers have definitely become much more astute to these. And you mentioned, I think, Mike, in your comment about Generation Z. But I think generally there's just more awareness. And I think with the tragic events of Ukraine, I think folks are all the more focused on independence and, things like that. So the whole topic is it's a much broader, community of folks that have an interest in this now.
Yeah, I think that's right. Thank you. Stephen, Kindle Automotive initiatives?
Yeah, it's
Measurable?
What's that?
And any of them measurable?
Absolutely. It's just a funny question right now for me because I came into work today and Ram dropped off a 700 horsepower pickup truck. So kind of in a different direction, but I can't control what the manufacturers do. I'm just along for the ride with them. But as far as our dealership goes, over the years, we've switched our lighting on. We light the whole lot, which is a significant expense and a lot of electric usage. We went from metal halide to LED. Not only electric, it's also generating heat that goes out into the environment and light pollution. So huge impacts with changing the lighting. After we did the lighting, we switched to high efficiency heat and air conditioning units throughout the whole facility. And then solar was done at the end. So we took a bunch of steps to try to improve our footprint.
And you're tracking the ROI on those projects as well?
Absolutely. I mean, just the LED lights throughout the whole facility, including metal halide, draws a ton of electric, and they paid themselves off in under 2 years.
Okay, great. So all of you have done or are planning multiple projects with Geoscape. What made you decide to expand your solar footprint? Was it more, in some cases you couldn't get all the electricity you could from the first project? Were you looking to see how it worked first? Did you find your usage went up a little bit after and needed more solar to cover that? What was the driving factor? And we'll start with Stephen.
Yeah, I would assume everybody on here is a leader in their field, and it is nice to feel more independent and not just waiting for Atlantic City Electric or whoever your provider is to keep raising rates or whatever the regulations are. So we like the idea that we can help control our costs. And since it worked out so well, I mean, in the picture behind me, we're adding a whole nother row. We provided power for the dealership, where we also have a car wash that's just outside the picture. So that extra carport row of solar will power the entire car wash.
Excellent. Will?
Yeah, Stephen, I'm hoping that our legislative friends don't figure out a way to, tax solar, generation in some way, shape, or form, right? Because I'm with you. I think that once again, we're very substantial users, of electricity with 70 some rides and water park motors and all these kind of things. So it will take some real estate and more effort on our part to become completely sustainable by solar. But again, we've made pretty darn substantial gains, and we see some more runway left to go. But even if we're able to get to the 70%, level, that's really substantial. And I think it's a good, we see it as a good defensive posture that will only enhance our return of investment as we move forward, because we do fear increases. Now, I'll tell you the other, I was talking not long ago with in our association, where it's a global association, so you get to hear the perspective from folks all over the world. And the Europeans were talking about, how airline shaming was becoming sort of a detriment to tourism travel and things like that. So, I hadn't really envisioned roller coaster shaming, but we certainly want to be able to be responsible in how we approach our business and energy consumption and things like that, because it's not out of our imagination at this point that folks could turn a more critical eye towards discretionary amusement, entertainment, and the cost on the environment or the power and things like that. That years ago that would have seemed maybe a silly thought. I'm hope we don't get there, but it's certainly something that we have a little eye on.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Rob?
The timing of the project was really the main issue. We finished this project, the first one, at the end of 2019, and we were ready to go ahead with expanding it to other buildings. This covered about maybe 50% of the usage that we had in the park. So I felt we weren't done yet. But then COVID hit, and any of the ideas that I had for like financing it were really not, it wasn't a good time for it. So the only way we could have done it was either through a donor or an investor of something. And it was actually a different deal that was structured for it, but we completed it. While everything was shut down, the project went on during COVID for the second round of savings. And that's also realizing benefits to us.
Okay, fantastic. So last question for you all, and again, we have touched on it, and it is the world of the electric vehicles and chargers, and how you expect them to impact your business and your parking lots. And clearly a lot of news articles in the car industry about the notion of electric cars and gas stations and migration to charging, and whether those will be at traditional filling stations or will it be at other sort of public venues. So as you see the trend, what's that doing for your specific plans around the EV? And we'll start this one with Rob.
We have it more of as a service to our clientele, because we do have several hundred parking spaces on the grounds, and people's visits are generally 2 to 3 hours. So it's a perfect opportunity to, recharge their vehicle when they visit. And it was helped with a little bit of grant funding that we received towards it.
Rob, do you charge for those spaces, or are they free?
Currently, we don't. No.
Okay. And do you know any plans?
I'm not really sure yet.
Not sure.
Yeah.
Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a subject that is massive. It's in the news every day. EV, I mean, it's growing rapidly. It's not going to overtake internal combustion engines, I don't think within the next 5 years, but the size of the fleet is growing rapidly, and the production is growing rapidly. And batteries for these vehicles are difficult to get the resources for them, because they're within some of the countries we're not doing business with right now. But I don't think that'll stop it. I think EVs are here to stay, and it's going to continue to grow with and that's just from my automotive background. As far as charging goes, we're currently looking at fast chargers. There's pros and cons with fast chargers. Some degrade batteries. As far as I know, I think all of them do, except for there's some new future ones that are coming out that might not. But we are looking at putting in more EV charging stations. We have a couple that we use for our fleet on the ground, and then we're trying to put in more for the public. There's a massive need for more EV charging ports, especially in Cape May County.
And what do you think when you roll those out? Will you charge for them or provide them as a free service?
If you want to sell me the solar panels for free, I'll give it away. But no, I have to charge for it. I gotta recover a cost.
You might.
Well, I think it's another area where it's both an opportunity to expand the green impact, but also it's a business model.
And Mike, just to add to that, the fast chargers that we're looking at, I think all the quotes I've gotten are anything between $50,000 and $150,000 per charge port. So I'd like to recover that. I don't think I can donate that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
you probably noticed that Stephen pays attention to the numbers at this point in time. So if you have any questions, that's the guy to send the question to. I'll send you the analysis. Yeah, I didn't realize they were that expensive, Stephen. Yeah, I had no idea they were that expensive. So, we've prepared for it, but we don't understand it well enough at this point is the flat out answer. We could see, as you mentioned, Stephen, as far as Cape May County and the number of opportunities for charging, we could see our sort of clusters of parking and support for the boardwalk as being sort of hubs for that type of activity, but we haven't done the analysis yet to understand how that would work. We didn't build the systems, to be charging stations. We built them to offset our electric costs. So to what degree will the charging station degrade that performance? At what point is it worth it? Is it another profit center? We don't understand it well enough yet.
Okay, very fair. Thank you. Well, and thank you to all our panelists. That concludes the formal questions. I'm going to put back up a slide. So as we've heard today, all our panelists have installed solar, and yet they're looking to still add more. So what's the current environment for those who want to go solar for the first time? Third-party financing options for nonprofits and small to medium businesses have increased significantly over the past few years. It is now highly likely that we can find a no cash down structure for most potential customers. With New Jersey SREC prices fixed, a big part of the uncertainty in the past has been eliminated, so the cash flows from solar are highly reliable and dependable. Right now, the most challenging part of going solar is the same issue facing other industries, the global supply chain. Prices are up, things are taking longer than they have in the past, but we're still getting them done. Geoscape Solar's entire history has been about navigating solar's logistical and financial challenges on behalf of our customers. We tailor, design, finance, and install in order to meet each business's or organization's energy and financial goals. So thank you again to all our guests, Maurice Piers, Grounds for Sculpture, Kindle Auto Plaza, who collectively have installed over 2.6 megawatts of solar energy, producing 4.6 million kilowatt hours annually of clean energy, which has taken 52 million pounds of carbon dioxide out of our atmosphere and is the equivalent of planting 247,000 trees on our planet and taking 25 million miles off of our roads. So please, I encourage you to contact us to discover more. And we are now going to look at the questions that have come in. And let's see, first question. Did any of you have to shut down your business when your installation was being built? Okay, well, Will, you're on the screen. Let's start with you.
Sure. Well, being a seasonal business, we could pick our timing, fairly well. So it had no adverse effect on operations for us. Yeah, and I don't think, even if we were in the middle of the season, and actually some of the installation went into our season on the roof structures and all that, there was no issue with that at all. And your team did a great job in that regard.
Thank you. Yeah, we do work around whatever the schedule is of our customers, whether it's hours restriction, seasonal. Usually the only time you have to have a shutdown is at the final where we have to interconnect to the utility. Because of the hot electrical nature, sometimes we have to shut down an operation for a few hours. If it's a critical business function, we can set up generators to make sure there's still power to the building while that goes on.
Right.
Stephen, what did you see in your experience?
Like Will, I'm also in a seasonal area. When we installed ours, it was slightly in our off season, but we still have a lot of service cars. We park them on where those carports were going in. When we did it, that whole area had to be blocked off. So we had to move cars around a lot. The other major factor that helped us, surprisingly, it's helped in this aspect, it was terrific. We don't really have many new cars to talk about. I don't think there's anybody in the United States that has many new cars on their car lots. So we have giant parking lots in front of the building. So we were able to move our service customers out there. And then as far as hookup goes, your team was terrific. They came in, I think it was like at 5 a.m. to help connect. So we were able to start work at 7:30.
Okay, great. Rob, any impact at GFS?
No, I mean, the only impact was maybe a loss of some parking spaces, but as the work got done and the panels got put up on the roof, the footprint shrunk every week during the project. So we didn't lose any business or any, nothing slowed down. And as far as when the actual changeover or we had to shut down, off the power, it happened like on a Sunday night overnight where they installed everything, and we didn't lose any coverage.
Excellent. So each of you picked your own way, but the question is, what is the best way to finance a solar energy system? So again, Rob, you're up. Why don't we continue with you from the perspective of a nonprofit?
What was the best way? We went to our bank. We talked to a couple of banks, and our existing, bank where we have all of our accounts was more than willing to finance it for us.
Okay, Will?
Yeah, we did bank financing as well. Yeah, that was just what, I can't say that we looked for the 10 other ways that, if there are 10, to do it, but for us, it was a pretty straightforward and I think fairly understandable project to finance with traditional bank financing.
Okay, great. Stephen?
I would say that's a hard question to answer. Everyone has a unique circumstance, and they may be able to get different rates or different lending terms that allow it to be more flexible, depending on what your finances are in your history and what your business is. But for us, we went with the bank, but our bank also does large equipment leasing, since we have a lot of car lifts, like a frame machine for a collision center could be up to 200 grand. So they routinely finance equipment, so we went with them.
Terrific. Yeah, I think Stephen really hit it. Everybody's circumstances is unique, from whether it's tax appetite and liabilities, whether it's access to bank financing, other demands of your organization for cash flow. So there are a variety of ways, and what's best for one may be not best for another. And that's one of the things Geoscape Solar does, is help customers navigate what their priorities are, what they have access to, and help you figure out what's best for your situation. Next question is, do you think you'll ever get to using 100% renewables? So obviously solar would be a part of that. So if solar can't get you all the way there, can you do it with some other form of technology? Stephen?
I think that's definitely a goal of ours. I don't see how we're going to be able to go 100% at the moment, especially with the amount of power we use and the fact that some of our business happens at night in the wintertime. Solar can't do it all the way around the clock unless we figure out large battery banks or something like that. And also, I think there's state or utility regulations, Mike, you might be able to answer that don't allow us to be 100% solar. Is that correct, Mike?
Well, you're not allowed to be more than 100%.
Okay.
And the way that works in technical fashion is we compare your forecasted production from solar to what you used historically. And by regulation, we're not allowed to design a system to produce more. Obviously, weather changes, so what it actually, nobody's held accountable to what it actually produces. They just they look at what your design is. So if you install solar, it meets 95% of what you need. Then you install LEDs and some other energy saving, and you end up producing more than 100%. You're fine. And Rob?
I don't think we would be have a goal of 100%, but we're still, looking for cost savings all along, and not wasteful of even though the energy from solar is much cheaper than off the grid, we're still looking for ways to cut usage and, improve other areas that are using energy in other parts of the grounds.
Yeah. Will, I know you talked about 70%, but do you have any other plans up your sleeve?
I think one of the things that's really, great is that years and years ago, we wouldn't have thought, all right, well, how do we save energy on the giant wheel? Take light bulbs off? So that's, but instead of saving 15% by taking light bulbs off, we're saving, 85% because we put LED, lighting on it. So I do think that technology is advancing as it, has historically, and I'm hopeful that motor systems and variable drive motors and all those things start to sort of contribute to less demand and kind of run in concert with the solar generation. So it may be that what we're generating grows in its percentage because of some of the other advances that we're able to put into place, and that we've seen that happen, and we think that should continue.
Right. So a combined impact.
Exactly, right.
All right. We'll stay with you for this one, Will. So we talked a little bit about customer perception of what you guys are doing, but has it gotten to the point yet where you think you can measure whether patrons are coming to you because you've gone solar, as opposed to some of your competitors or alternative way of spending their time?
I don't think so. I don't think I could say they're coming here because of it. But one of our focuses in our business, we're a little different than a typical theme park where folks pile in the car and they'll go every year, maybe every 2 years to a theme park. This is part of the rhythm of the shore, and folks come down and they have the whole shore experience with their families. So repetitive visits are really important to us. So we want to be able to reinforce that reason to come back, that reason to visit us and come repetitive times during the summer. So adverse impacts can impede that, so my view is that, and I think the view of those in the company are that although it's not an amusement product, we think that the carports in our new parking facility will not only offer a premium parking experience, but I think it will just sort of add credibility to the company as a socially responsible, participant, so to speak. So we feel that will contribute to visitation and ultimately spending, but we haven't been able to measure it, but we'll see if we can figure out how to do that. So.
Okay, great. Stephen, anybody buying Fords from Kindle as opposed to elsewhere because you're solar?
I haven't had anyone say it yet. I have had service customers say that they do appreciate the fact that their car is out of the weather for the most part. So they didn't say if they would go elsewhere, but I think that does help. And I've had a lot of comments around our town saying that they appreciate the fact that we're being responsible.
Yeah.
Okay. Rob, I know you said one of the things you were able to do was have some more programming, including some of the nightlight elements that you introduced this year. Whether due to that or just by solar, do you see your attendance increasing?
Well, I think people like to come to an organization that is socially responsible, and also for all the other reasons that we do attract visitors. One of the areas that we're looking to grow is corporate engagement, and I think that corporations are definitely taking a look at that aspect of what we're trying to achieve as far as the impact on the environment, and so maybe that'll help support us more.
Looking forward to that, right? Okay, we're very close to our 2:00 ending time. We had a few more questions. For the folks that had put in questions, I would ask you to retype them in non-anonymous, so that we can actually respond to you by email and get you those answers. And I would like to thank everybody that joined us from taking time out in your busy day, to our panelists. Contact us to discover more, as I said, and everybody please have a meaningful Earth Day.
Good deal. Thanks, Mike.
Mike.
Thank you all.